All right. Good evening, everyone, once again. Welcome to another edition of Strategic Financial Management. In today's class, we shall continue with our lecture on the appropriate cost of capital or the risk-adjusted cost of capital. Now, in this class, in our previous lecture, which is yesterday, we were able to look at these questions. And I said this question is one of the technical questions that you may likely see such questions because it's very technical, right? And we were able to follow up our steps from step 1 to step 4, right? So the last one for us to do is on what is it called? Is on appropriate the weighted average cost of what? The weighted average cost of capital. Don't forget that when you want to determine the weighted average cost of capital, which is because you are talking about the risk here, because the company want to diversify. We read it yesterday, right? Now, when you want to determine the WACC, right, which is the appropriate cost of capital, because it has include the risk of that business, right? Now, when you want to calculate it, you need to do what? What do you need to do? You need to look for the value of equity. All what you are looking for, all the elements, all the ingredients you are looking for will be for the main what? Will be for the main company, not for the proxy company, right? Don't forget that we have equally explained that the proxy company is the company that you are diversifying into, right? Opeyemi is into production of yam or beans, for instance, or bread, for instance, and Opeyemi will now want to diversify into production of cement. Okoyemi need to identify similar company that are producing what? That are producing cement, right? So that it will take a consideration of the business risk of that what? Of that particular industry, right? And that is why we need to determine the weighted average cost of what? Capital. So the weighted average cost of capital you will calculate, it will be you are using all the elements of the what? You are using all the elements of the what? Of the what? Of the main company class. Now, it is not new to us, right? It is not, we've done something like this before now. Now, okay, let's quickly bring out the variables. We are supposed to complete this question, but unfortunately, because of our time, we could not finish up with that class. Okay, now you can see it here, and okay, let me separate this. Value of debt times the cost of debt, right? Now, we bring out the variable VE, VD. VE is the market value of equity, and VD is the market value of debt. Then KE is the cost of equity. Then you look for the tax rate. Now, class, don't forget that the cost of equity here is 18.1%. Right? Calculated in step 4. You can see that this is step 4, right? So the cost of equity is what? Is 18 point what? 18.1%, right? 18.1% or what? 18.1% or 0.081, right? Or 0.081, right? Now, the tax rate, the tax rate given to us in this question. Let's quickly go back to where we start from, right? It should be 0.1.
0.181.
Yes, yes, 181. Yes, thank you. So we quickly go back to the question. Thank you for that. We quickly go back to the question. Don't forget that I said it yesterday that this corporate tax given to you, right? You could have a corporate tax for the main company. You could have the separate corporate tax for the proxy company, which is the company you are diversifying into the industry, right? Now, in this question now, we're given only one corporate tax. So it is assumed that this corporate tax will be used for both the main company as well as the what? As well as the proxy company. So we quickly have the tax rate. We've done something like this before uh, in our previous lecture, right? Now, What will be the market value of equity of the what? Of the main company, right? Please go back to the previous lecture where we have the risk adjusted cost of capital ACCA question, right? We will see ACCA question I think part 4, right, is there. Now, don't forget that in step 3 here, class, in step 3, don't forget that this, as we highlighted it yesterday, right, in our previous lecture, that this one highlighted here, right, is the what? Is the financial risk of the what? Of the proxy company, right? Of the main company, sorry. Of the what? Of the main company, of which we have actually determined the value of debt. You can see the value of debt of the main company here, and the value of equity of the main company, which we've done that yesterday, right? So I just need to copy all this and put in that part, so that we can quickly calculate this, then we'll look at a fresh question. So this is 582.4 M, right? So, and the value of equity is 1,140, right? So value of equity is 1,140, right? So the reason why I need to do this is because I'm seeing some of you are getting 108 percent and thereabout, right? Which is very, very wrong, right? It could be from the calculation though. So the weighted average cost of capital here will be equals to, now the VE is what? 1,140 times the cost of equity is 0.181, right? So divided by the value of equity, right? Divided by the value of equity. So what is the value of equity here? So the value of equity is 1,140 plus the value of debt, which is 582.4, right? 582.4. There is plus here, right? Okay. So if this is established, plus, we need to put plus. So the value of debt is what? 582 point what? 0.4 M. So we do the same thing divided by the same figure, and we have this. Okay, now, we need to multiply by the cost of debt. Now, you need to ask yourself, is the cost of debt of the main company, is it pre-tax or post-tax? Pre-tax means that they've not taken tax into what? Into consideration. So we'll go back to our question now. I'm coming so that we can quickly go back to our question. We check if the tax, if the cost of debt, sorry, if the cost of debt is pre-tax or post-tax. Now, let's quickly go back to the question. Now, don't forget that in summary of yesterday, don't forget that TL is the main company. AK and LS is the proxy company, right? Operating in the packaging industry. Now, we're given the ordinary shares as the sources of finance, then the medium and long term as the sources of finance, which is the value given to us here, right? Now, all these elements, as explained yesterday, are the market price of each of the company. The loan stock price are the market price of each of the company. Then we have the equity beta, right? Now, you can see that in this part, they say TL 12% loan stock. Class, TL what? TL 12% what? 12% what? 12% loan stock. Class, TL is what? It has how many percent loan stock? 12%, right? 12%, class. Now you can see that this 12%, it is before tax. They've not actually include the tax element. Class, the TL of 12% loan stock, in this question, it was not even indicated if it is pre-tax or, but when you see something like this, it is pre-tax. It is not post-tax, right? Because they've not actually what? Taking what? Tax into what? Into consideration. So therefore, you can say, oh, 12, right? So 12, 1 minus tax rate. So you can use it. But if it is post-tax means they've taken tax into what? Into consideration. So we quickly round up this question with this. uh okay, it is 12%, right? It is 12%, 0.112, right? Open bracket, 1 minus tax rate. The tax rate is what? 0.33. Class, give me figure. I need figure for the first part here, then so that we can add the other part. Queen, are you still with us? Rachel, figures. So please add the first part of this.
0.66.
What do you have?
For the first one, 0.66.
0 point exclusive. Are you still there? 0 point what?
66.
Okay. Oh, we have some people waiting. Okay. Sorry for keeping you waiting. Okay, sorry. My apologies for keeping you waiting, please. Okay. So if this is 0.66, right? So what of the second part? The second part is what? Plus, what do we have? Give me figure. What do you have? Queen, are you still with us?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
I'm here.
Okay, okay,
I
that's
think the
good.
value of debt is 582, not 592, sir.
Okay, the value of debt. Okay, coming now. You see, the value of debt for the main company is what? 592. Okay,
582.
okay,
582.
okay, it's just 582. Okay, 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 that's true. That's true. 582. Thank you. Okay. So what do we have? Class, figure away. What do you have? I need something.
0.027.
0 point
027.
0.027. What do you have?
Sorry, excuse
Because
me. The first part, I'm not
Ah,
getting
the first thing
0.46. So
okay, what do you have, I beg?
zero
Interesting.
point one
119.
one
Zero
nine.
point
1197.
That's 0.12.
That's
so
what I was
zero
getting. So,
okay,
582.4 now, not 592.4 for the first part.
okay, okay. This is 8. Okay,
yes.
okay. Please check again. No,
That'll be 0.12 approximately.
0.12. Okay. What do you have? Um, where is um where is Solomon? Are you still with us? Where is exclusive? Rachel, figure please, so that we can move now. We don't have time. This pay way. Should I calculate this thing?
No, we have 0.147.
0.147.
That's 40.7.
Okay. Oh, 14.7. Right? 14.7. Okay. Is this 14.7%? Okay. So this is the appropriate weighted cost of capital, right? Now, this is the appropriate what? the weighted cost of capital. Don't forget, let's quickly go back to this question. Let's quickly go back to the question. Don't forget that TL proposed to finance the expansion of textile with this figure. Is that not so? Which is 11% loan stock for textile expansion. Don't forget that they want to do two things. They want to expand in the textile industry. They still want to diversify into packaging what? Packaging investment class. Now, and the packaging investment cost with this, and they will have a right issue. Don't forget that I've explained this right issue in our what? In our previous what? In our previous class. In our what? In our previous class, right? So therefore, now the TL managers are proposing to use a discount rate of 15% per year to evaluate each of these projects. And I've actually explained this yesterday, in our previous class, that this 15% is not visible, because when you want to evaluate the project, most especially on the packaging investment, you need to, your your appropriate discount rate needs to include the risk of that other what? Industry, right? Now, don't forget that I said you can state your assumption, right? So don't forget that I said when you want to answer this question, you could say, start from this, you could say, oh, the 15%, the view of the managing director or the managers is actually wrong or is not correct, right? By using the 15% as the appropriate discount rate to discount what? The project. Why? Because the 15% does not include the risk of the what? Of the packaging what? Industry. Don't forget that we equally state some assumption in our previous what? Class. You can list your assumption, then you do your calculation just like the way we did it, and you earn your 18 marks, right? Now, another thing I want you to talk about again is that, this is 15%, right? Now, what is your total calculation? You get, what is your, you have 14.7% class. You have what? 14.7 what? 14.7%. Now, what is this 14.7%? Look at it that, oh, for 14.7% is appropriate discount rate that should be used to what? To discount what? To discount the project. Why? Because it contains the risk of the what? The packaging what? Industry. You move on, right? Now, another thing I want you to talk about is the textile expansion. Now, don't forget that this TL is into textile operations, right? Is into textile, right? And they want to do some expansion as well as they want to diversify. Now, what you need to do here for the expansion, class, for the expansion, since we were given the cost of equity, right? We were given the cost of equity, we were given the element of CAPM, which is the risk-free rate, right? Which is the risk-free and the market return, right? Now, we need to determine the cost of what? We need to determine the cost of what? The cost of equity of TL. Using that, then when we determine the cost of equity, using that, then you can now do your weighted average cost of what? Capital. Then you can still now compare with the what? With the 15%. Now let's do it this way. Now the first one that we did is on packaging what? Industry, right? Now we will now say, oh, expansion. Expansion of what? Expansion. Expansion. Coming. Expansion of textile, right? Now, expansion of textile, right? Now, the first thing you need to do is that calculate, you know, you want to, it is the textile industry. That is what TL operates, right? Now, you need to determine what will be the cost of equity, because all what you need to determine the weighted average cost of equity as well, based on the expansion class, so that you can now compare with the 15% if it is appropriate or not class. Now, expansion of what? Textile. Now, first determine the cost of equity, right? Using the normal formula for this. Don't forget that The reason why we don't need to adjust for risk is because it is still the same it is still the same industry class. It is still the same what? It is still the same industry. So there is no need for you to calculate any risk. But when you assuming the company is moving, is diversifying now, going like the packaging industry that we just calculate now, right? That is when you can now say, oh, you need it, class. That is why you can now say what you need the risk you need to adjust for. So since it is still the same industry, so you don't need to adjust for what risk. Just calculate the cost of equity of the what of the company. Then you calculate the what weighted average. So class, the cost of equity. So give me figure. Risk free. What is the risk free here? Let me copy this thing. Let me copy all these things. So what is the risk free? What is the beta for TL class? Beta for TL is what? What is the beta for TL? So none of you have the material. Oh, you have it. No, some of you have it. Exclusive
1.2.
1.2. Thank you. So if you don't know where we get it, go back to TL. You can see TL, right? We did it yesterday, right? It is what? 1 point what? 1.2, right? Now, we move ahead, right? So we just, what is the cost of equity class? What is the cost of equity? What is the cost of equity? Quickly. What is the cost of equity? Hello? What is the cost of equity?
15.6.
15.6, right? 15.6. 15.6. Okay, please, if you are just joining us for the first time, if you are just joining us for the first time, please raise up your hands. Let me see your hand up. If you are, apart from Opeyemi, that's he has actually introduced himself. Others, we are together. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Now, after the cost of equity, you can see that it is 15%. Now, you cannot calculate the WACC for the company. Class, when you are calculating WACC, listen, when you are to determine the WACC of TL class, when you are to determine the work of TL, it will contain both the two industry. When you are to, you cannot separate it because they are one business class. So when you want to determine the work, you need to bring out, your what, all your ingredients that you will use to determine the work. Now, let's test it out. You will see it now. Set it quickly. Okay, this is our formula, right? Exclusive, mute your mic.
Sorry.
Okay, so we have work, right? So this is the formula for calculating work. Please, if you don't understand, before we continue, please, if you don't understand, ask your question, or mute your mic and ask your question quickly. If you don't understand, or mute your, apart from
Sir.
the person that
Sir.
is just joining us now. So if you are just joining us for the first time in this class, so please don't ask questions, just mute like that. Right? So immediately after the class, you can go and watch all the parts. Right? When you watch
Sir.
all the parts, you can ask your question. Okay, Rita. I know, Rita, she has been consistent at least. Okay,
Sir. Please, why are we solving for the expansion of textile? We are really
thank you.
required in the question to solve for it.
Thank you. Now, thank you so much. That is a very good question. But were you in our class yesterday? Right? Were you in the class? Were you in the
I
class?
watched it. I watched
Okay,
it.
okay. Yes, the first part that I did some analysis, so that is why it is good to be in class. I did some analysis. Unfortunately, the recording, the screen recorder did not. The mic is muted, right? So I can when anything I'm saying, you can't hear anything, right? So that is why I did not upload it at all because you can't hear anything, right? So the question, that is a very good question, Rita. Now, why you have to solve for that is because they have two things. They want to expand. Don't forget that they want to expand, right? Based on what you watch. Is that also textile? And they want to diversify into packaging as well. So now you need to determine in the packaging, you need to include the risk. That is why you determine the appropriate discount rate. Now, in the other expansion, because they say, look at the requirement, determine whether 15% per year at 15% per year is an appropriate discount rate. So use for each of these projects. So they have two projects. Do you get? So you need to determine the discount rates that you will use to discount the two projects. Do you get? One is existing. Do you get? There is no, you will say, oh, because the business risk still remain. Fine. The business risk still remain. Although you need to test for the risk on a yearly basis, but the risk of the business still remain. But the packaging industry is different from what? The textile. Rita, have I answered your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, are we good? Are we good now? Right? We are good. Right? Okay. Now,
Yes,
if that
yes.
okay, thank you, thank you. So quickly, the value of equity, value of debt, coming, tax, cost of what? Cost of debt, right? Cost of debt, tax, what again? What again? VE, VD, and KE, right? Okay, and KD as well from the formula, KD, right? Which is the cost of debt. Don't forget, if the cost of debt is post-tax, they've taken tax into post, right? If it is pre, they've not taken tax into what? Consideration. Now, so, okay, the value of equity now, right? Don't forget, is for the main company, right? Now, for the textile, let's go back to the question. For the textile, what do we have? Let's go back to the question and check what they talk about textile. Now, class, don't forget that this is what they are talking about textile. You can see TL proposed to finance the expansion of textile operation with a first 47.27 million, 11% loan stock, and for the packaging is this, and the packaging we have what is it called? We have a discount which will be on right issue, right? Now, on this textile class, please, on this textile now, right? The cost of debt is 11%. Class, are you with me? On this textile now, the cost of debt, why do you use 11%? Because you want to determine the discount, the weighted average cost of capital that you will use to discount the project. So the cost of debt is 11%. Now, if you have established that, class, now what would be the what? What would be the cost of what? What would be the cost of equity? Right? What would be the cost of equity? Now, don't forget that if this is the loan, or let's say debt, what would be the cost of, what would be the value of what? What would be the value of debt? Now, don't forget that if this is 47 what is this? Class, are we still together? I need to confirm that first.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay, okay. Now, what would be the market value? What would be the market value of that particular debt? Class, class, this is, it will cost them, the value will be 47.27 million for the textile. Class, what you need to do is that this is 11%. Is that also? The 11% is the what? Is the cost of debt. Establish that. Now, the value of debt is 47 for the textile. It is 47 because that is what they want to borrow to for the what? For the expansion, right? So it is what the value of debt is what? 47.27 class. Now, why when you want to determine your equity, right? Don't forget that it's the combination of the two. You have to do your equity and debt. Is that not so? Now, why if they for the packaging, right? Because of course, if they are considering the two products, the two packaging. There is no how you will talk about the debt, right? The value of debt. You will not mention the what, the equity part of it. So, which means that if 47.27 is the value of debt for Testa, right? 11%. Why, if you want to use for your equity, right? Because you cannot say equity is zero. Is that not so? Since they are going for the what is it called? Two expansion, one for expansion and one for packaging, right? So the value of equity for packaging is what? Class is for packaging is what? 92 what? 92 point is this 92 point what 75. So therefore, the market value of equity of debt is 47.27, right? Going for the debt, the cost of debt is 11%. Why the equity, right? Why the equity will be what? 92.75, right? 92.75. Although that is the market value of equity. Although we already calculated what? The cost of equity, right? Because we are talking about the firm. You cannot, let me say, you cannot exonerate the packaging investment because that is the value, because they want to do a right issue for that as well. So, class, please take note of that, please, because I will need this figure. Right, let me finish before you ask your question. Now, I know you will have question. Now, if that is established, please, what is the value of equity? What is the value of equity? The value of equity, class. What is the value of equity? Okay, this is cost of debt is 15.6%. What is the value of equity? I say you should screenshot. Okay, this is it now. This is the value of equity, 92.75. This is the value of debt. This is the value of debt, 47.27, right? And this is the cost of debt, which is what? 11%, class. So 47.27. Please take note of that. Just screenshot it so that if I ask question, we will. Okay, 47.275 for the market value of debt, right? Okay, 40 what? Exclusive. Chat. So I was talking to myself since. Please confirm if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Chat.
Yes, sir.
I've been talking to myself. Oh.
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
We can hear you now.
I've been talking to myself. Oh. Where did I stop? Please. What was my last word? Please. Hello.
We can hear you.
We can't see
Okay.
your screen.
Okay. But what was the last statement I made? I've forgotten actually.
Sorry, I forgot.
You were talking about the cost of equity of the textile. I think the textile company and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, let me quickly go back
We
again.
are
I
talking
think
about
I was just talking to myself. I didn't know that this thing has my Wi-Fi has went off. I have to switch. Okay, now this is what I'm explaining. I said this is the cost. This is the market value of debt for the textile, right? And this is the cost of debt for the textile. Now, and the packaging investment with right issue. Don't forget that the company wants to go into the expansion as well as. So when you want to determine the work, right, you need to use the elements. You have to use the element of the ingredients, the element of the textile as well as what package, because you cannot separate it. Just like no, you can't even separate them. Why? Because it is for the same company you are calculating for. So if you say your value of equity is your value of debt is 47.27, because that is what we cost them, and the cost of debt is what is 11%, right? So what will be the equity? What will be the value of equity? So the value of equity will still be the same. The packaging investment. So now, class, pick it now. Screenshot this part. Your value of equity, your value of debt is 47.27. The cost of debt is 11%. The equity, the market value of equity, you use 92.75. Don't forget that ideally they're supposed to give us the level of gearing. Don't forget they used to say, oh, debt to equity plus equity, just like the way we did in our previous class. So now let me quickly finish this so that you can ask your question. So please picture that so that we ask the question. Okay, now class, give me figure. So what is the value of debt? Give me figure. What is 47 what? Hello?
47.27.
727.
4727.
47,
47.27.
47.27. Okay, what is the equity? What is the equity? The packaging. What is the equity for the packaging? 97 point what? Is it 97? Hello?
92.75.
2.75.
Okay, 92.75.
92.75.
Okay. So the tax is part of your, don't forget that the tax rate is part of don't forget that we talked about the tax in the previous lecture, right? Now, the cost of debt is 11%. So since they did not actually indicate is it pre-tax, so that tax, if it is post-tax, it will be stated that it is post-tax. So that 11% is what is pre-tax. So you need to take consideration of what the tax, right? So therefore you can have 11, right? 11%, that is 0.11 open bracket 1 minus 0.33, right? So class, what do you have? What is your cost of debt here? So you can give me figure here. I expect you calculate the work. What do you have? The value of equity is 92.75. Class, this is 18 marks, right? Times the cost of equity, 15.6 divided by 100, that is 0.156, right? 0.156. Okay. So, okay, 0.156. So what do we have? Quickly. You divide it. Divide it. What do you have? 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 Give me final. Just give me figure, please. So value of equity is 92.75 plus value of debt is 47.27, right? Plus value of debt 47.27 times, we already take into so when you take consideration of the tax, what do you have? What is the cost of debt? What is the debt? What is the debt? Hello? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear
Yes,
you.
because
Yes.
Okay,
Zero
give me
point
figure.
zero seven four.
0.074.
Okay, times 0.074. Okay. So divided by, please give me figure. What is your work? Give me figure. What is the work? Rita, are you still with us? Rita, are you still on this call?
Yes, yes, yes.
Uh,
It's 10%.
Rita,
I got 10%.
okay. So figure. You can see the reason why we have to do it this way, because that is what you will use. Already, we already established this, the first work that we calculated, that they need to use 14.7%, because the view of the managing director is actually wrong, is not correct, right? Now, expansion of test. So what is the weighted average cost of capital that you can still, that is what you will still use as your basis of your what explanation. Class, give me figure.
0.13.
Okay, 0.13, 0.13. So that is 13%, right? 13%. So you can still argue it, that you can still go further and say, oh, you cannot say, oh, the appropriate discount rate that should be used to discount this for expansion of tester is what? Is 13%, right? Because each year, for every year, right? Even if you are in textile industry, every year the risk may likely change. Okay, now, for instance, now CBN recapitalization policy. Who knows that in 2024 there will be CBN capital recapitalization? The banking industry, well, they were not even expecting that, right? So what happened to the risk? The risk of that industry will change. So that is why for expansion, they want to look at it. Because on what basis?